There we go. All right. So today is Wednesday, September 20th. And we are in COSC 1010 and or ES 1060. And today we are going to talk about MATLAB code. So everybody has turned in their pseudocode, and the computer science 1010 folks have turned in a flow chart, which is not required of the ES 1060 students. But basically what we're working on then is finishing, kind of landing the plane and getting ready for the final steps of writing our code about temperature conversion. So the first thing is, I put this down. I just thought this was really interesting. For those of you who watched the lecture last Friday by Professor Tony about the software development program that's going to be available soon, he started talking about tech stacks. And I just thought that was a really, it was something that was important to bring up because we'd never really mentioned it. So a tech stack is just basically all the stuff that you use from the bottom up in order to use a programming language. And so one of the reasons that I wanted to show that tech stack is you'll notice all of the things below it and the browser above it, and how the programming language, which here is MATLAB, if you're in 1030 as well, you're also using Python. But the programming language is just a piece of that tech stack. So I just thought that was a really interesting diagram. Now, today, by the end of the day, I would like you to submit a draft of your MATLAB code for the temperature conversion problem. And what I'm going to talk about today is something that I saw over and over again with people's pseudocode and flowchart, which was, most people don't understand how to accept a variable and to make multiple calculations based on that variable. So I wanted to explicitly go through that with you and go through a little bit of code. So then next Monday, we will have class. I don't have it put here, but we'll have class and we'll have lab. So that will be your chance to tune up your code, but you'll turn in your code tonight, then by midnight tonight, and then I will give you feedback on it. I will definitely grade it for you, but I'll also give you feedback. So that will help you write your final code. Then next Monday, we'll talk about the final code in lecture and we'll work on it in lab. So I'm just letting you know, this is like writing a rough draft of a paper. We are by no means finished tonight. I really want to see you make that effort to take your pseudocode or your flowchart and turn it into the MATLAB language to express that in MATLAB. However, if it's working, I am so excited for you. Do not expect that in any way. So this is part of the process. So the best, I would equate what we're doing right now to writing a big term paper, where you work on it for several weeks and you have a rough, you do an outline, which is kind of the pseudocode and the flowchart, and then you do a rough draft, which is what we're doing today. And then finally, we'll have a final product by a week from today. But so that's kind of where we are right now. So what the problem that I saw in the pseudocode, I need to put this up. Sorry about that. Let's get that. Okay. The main problem I saw was how to accept one variable, and that variable would be either F, R, C, or K, and then make 3 calculations based on that. So in other words, if the user inputs F, they would put the letter F, and then they would put the value, and then you would calculate C, K, and R. If they input R, the program calculates C, K, and F. And if it calculates, if you input C, F, R, K. So in other words, no matter what the variable is, you're going to have 3 values calculated on that value. And then if, on the other hand, you input something other than F, C, R, or K, then you want to say invalid input or something similar. Or if you put in a value that results in R or K being less than 0, that means you're going below absolute 0. That's also invalid input. All right. So today, I wanted to do just a little bit of code with you and show you what that code is going to look like. So let me come over here to my mail, and then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So basically, this is just a little abbreviated piece of MATLAB code, and you can use this directly in your program because it's part of that, part of this code. But basically, this is just one step. This is if a user types in F, okay? And then this is how it works to calculate the other three. But it works exactly the same if you input C or K or R. You just have to have the formulas that correspond to that. Now, there are some specifics about this that I wanted to show you. First of all, as you see, anytime you make a comment, you would put a % out here. That's just the key. That's the signal to MATLAB to say, MATLAB does not have to read this. This is just for me to say what I'm doing. All right. The next one is, now here's a couple of things, and I messed this up. I wanted to say, every time I write MATLAB code, anytime I write any code, I always have to edit my work. And so the first thing is MATLAB is similar to Python in the sense that whether letters are capitalized or not MATLAB does not understand if you put in type equals input, value equals input, if those are in small letters, it will only recognize small letters. It's just like here, where I say input your temperature, and then I said here, F is the only option, and then I tell it it's a string. Because I have said if type is capital F is the only thing that MATLAB is going to read. If you put in a little f, a lowercase f, it could be anything. It is not the same. So you have to be really careful in both languages with capitals and small. Now, MATLAB is way more forgiving about tabs. I know that in Python, for example, the column that you start your code in is ultimately important and can make a big difference. MATLAB doesn't really do that. So that's the good news. But anyway, so basically what this program does is it will tell the user, input your temperature type, F is the only option, and then it tells us that that's a string. Then it has a value and it says input, it gives you another thing. So this is for putting in the letter F. This is for putting in the value, whatever the 44 degrees Fahrenheit or 78 degrees Fahrenheit. And I gave a warning, it better be above, greater than negative 459. It's actually 459 with a decimal place, but I'm just using 459 in this formula. The reason is because if you look at this formula, if F is below negative 459, R will go below 0, and then it's an invalid input because we're going below absolute 0. Okay, so this sets up all 4 of those calculations, and then I tell it display all values. So last time when I talked about the Hello World program, I used the display command fprintf. Here I'm using the command display. So it does essentially the same thing in a different way. But as far as what you'll see, you can use DISP, or you can use fprintf, or you can use the word display. They're all commands that will display that. Then at the end, when I'm done, I just always say that's all, folks, that's just a comment to myself. And then the end command telling me that I'm at the end of the program. All right. So what happens if I take this code, and if I'm lucky, I'm going to be able to move it over into the MATLAB programming environment. Let's find out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And here we go. All right, so here I am, and I'm going to tell it, I'm going to put in a new script, okay? That's my way of saying I'm writing a program. So once again, here is it's called Untitled, and it will not run a program called Untitled. So this is just a temporary for me to put my stuff in. So I'm going to go ahead and put my code in. which I just copied straight out of that email that I showed you. Okay, so I make sure I've got all these things. I've got my if statement, F value, display, blah, blah, blah. So now before it will run, I have to save it. So I'm going to save this as, I'm going to go to my MATLAB drive. That's the next thing to notice. I'm online because I don't have access to the college's MATLAB program right now. But when you save it as the name, I'm going to say input, oops, let's go get rid of that cap block. Input underscore F, comma, output underscore RCK. Okay, and then it says it's going to save it as MATLAB code file. So there we go. You notice that right here on the tab, the name changed, so it knows who I am. And now what I would like to do is run that program. Let's see what happens. Okay, it says input. It tells me the name of the program. It says input your temperature type. F is the only option. So type in F. Input the temperature value, better be greater than -459. Let's say it's 66. And there it goes. So it prints out my C value, my K value, and my R value. You see how that works? All right. So we could put in a statement where it says that let's just do this. I'm going to run it again. Only now I'm going to do some invalid input. Okay. So input your temperature type. F is the only option. Let's put in R. And then it says 44. Let's see if it takes it. Yeah, see, it just goes bleh. There's nothing I can do. I didn't display an error message, but it doesn't calculate anything because it doesn't have a variable to calculate. Okay, so in other words, you can watch that, and then you can also probably live dangerously to try to do this. If you pull up your workspace, you can see where the variables are stored, and you can get other things. But like, let's say, for example, let's try one other thing. Let's run it again. Let's put in the variable correctly. Input your temperature. F is the only option, so I'm going to put in F. Okay, it says input your temperature value better be greater than -459. Now here, if I put in something smaller than -459, look at the code. I don't have a statement that's going to kick me back out again, do I? So it's going to go ahead and calculate values. So you see, but I've got R is less than 0 and so forth. So what's that telling me is that I don't have this code complete. All I have is the input. All right. So do you guys have any questions at this point? All right. So let me think about something else here. All right. So if I wanted to, let's say I've got this if statement. If type is equal to F, then do this. So let's see if I could just put in an else statement. Display, I'm just going to say else, and then display invalid. I always do that. Invalid. Let's see what happens. And then put a colon. I don't even have to do that, I don't think. All right, let's see what happens now. Let's go ahead and save it. Run that program. Let's see. Yeah, see, so then what I've done here is it says, I put in a little f, a small case f. I put in a number, it says invalid. All right. So that's just right now, my statement is just anything other than putting in a capital F. I don't have anything about the condition for the bottom number. All right. So what questions do you guys have for me about MATLAB? Okay, so this may be a good place for you to start this particular code. And if you want me, oh, there's one other thing I want to say. If you want me to email this to you so you can use it as a start, I mean, you can just copy it off the screen and off this video. But if you want me to email it to you, please just send me an email and I'll just send you a copy of the code so that you can get started. Now, when you write code, I thought about this the other day. Moodle may not allow you to teach .m code from. It may not allow you to attach that kind of a file, or you may not be able to access it. So what I would suggest to you, because I have to have it in a form I can read it, if you can't send it to me as an .m file or a MATLAB file, please send it to me in a Word document, or so as a Word document or as a PDF. And then I can just copy the code and copy it into my own MATLAB environment and check and run it from there. But I just have to have it in a form that I can run it. All right. All right. So when you name your code, because I'm going to be pulling it out of the environment, please put your name or initials in the name of the code. So in other words, if you put input F output RCK, another classmate of yours may have that code as well. But if you put your initials, so for example, for Anna, if you put AV input F or something like that, then I would be able to trace that back to you. Okay. So what questions do you have for me?
So, I mean, kind of more of a personal question for my code.
Yeah. I
try to get it to like go from the type.
Yes.
If you have the type.
Yes.
Like, the number like FR here, then you have to get it into the actual like integer, right?
Yes.
And then.
Well, it's two, right, it's two different steps.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have that, but it doesn't want to actually go into it. But if I go on the command and with my type, which is giving me back where I already have it. I have it in like 5 and it's fine. Because I have it like that number times 4, which is 20. But it doesn't do anything.
So what are you calling the variable of F times 4 or whatever the value times 4?
So I have it if type equal to K, but when it's just,
Sure.
I just have a random equation equal K, and then I have that to equal to go to Celsius C, and then she lets me.
Right. Okay, so here's the deal. F is not a value. So first of all, you don't use a single equal sign, you use 2 equal sign because you're comparing it. Okay, so then you have to call it out as being a value. In other words, you have to input the value itself. All right, so you're so do you see, it's kind of a weird thing, isn't it? So yeah, but you do have to change that into a value. So you have to have those 2 lines. So first thing is you compare it, you compare the string and see if it's F. So that's the F if type equal, and then you have to have those single parentheses, or not single parentheses, but the single quotes, which I always mess up, everybody. I always put in double quotes and I have to go back and redo it every single time. But so if it equals F, then F equals a value, then you say F equals value. That's where it will ask you to put in, see right here, this is what we're relating back to, is the type and the value. Okay, so that's the deal. So in other words, you're starting out with just typing in a string F. Then but MATLAB's not really accepting that as a value or a variable. It doesn't do that until you tell it a value is going to be this, and then F is a value. So there's 2 different things going on. You could use different letters, but then it becomes, in my opinion, quite confusing. So, yeah. So for you, you'll say, I mean, when you do this, you'll say, if F equals value, then do this. If C equals value, then do this. Okay, yeah. So, all right. Excellent question, Joey. Excellent question. So let's see here. All right, so zoomies, I'm going to put this, yeah, all we were looking at, I think I forgot to share my screen with you, but basically we were just looking at the code here. And so we were just saying that right here, F, and I get, oh, I didn't know that. See, it tells me the extra semicolon is unnecessary. I didn't know that, but it ran, so I'm happy. But the F is we're saying if you put in an F, then F is a value. And so then you put in the value right here where it says input the temperature value. So that's what it is. And so you would stack that 4 different times in an if then loop, with F being the value, C being the value, the input, and then changing it to a value. Okay, so then if you had your workspace up, you could see what your variables were doing. And as soon as you put in that F as a value or C, K, or R, it'll store that as a variable under that name. And then you can count, once that's stored, then you can make the other 3 calculations. And at the end, you can just do those ifs. The else at the end displays invalid. You'll have another one for, you'll have to check to make sure that the value of R and K stay at 0 or above. All right. Yes. All right, other questions? How about out in Zoom land? Do you guys have any questions for me? I don't have anything in the chat right now. I'm not even sure my chat is working on this. So if you have any questions out in Zoom land, let me know.
No, thank you so much.
Yes, well, thank you, May. That's very nice. I'm glad to hear from you. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I'm going to quit recording, and I want to reiterate that if you have trouble with this, or if you just have questions, please let me know. You can always use at the bottom of my email. There is a link where I have to share the screen again. Sorry about this. But there is a link at the bottom of my email where I have a Calendly link. Oops, wrong one. That's never going to do us any good. I'm not seeing it, but that's going to do this anyway. Where did they go? Here we go. It's right here. There we go. All right, I'm going to try one more time. There. Oh, there we go. Here we go. All right. So if you email me, or if I email you back, you'll see that at the bottom of the email, there's this Calendly link. And if you go to that link, there will be appointments when you can just schedule, and then we'll have a half hour to ourselves. We can meet either with Zoom or we can meet face to face, but please use that if you need to see me. You're also, of course, welcome to drop by my office, but who knows who else will be in there. So if you do this, it'll be reserved for you. So, all right. So best of luck, you guys, getting your code going. And I will look forward to getting your drafts tonight. And as always, as I've said, please get a hold of me if you have any problems.